Hi everyone, I'm Joanna.
And I'm Jenny.
And this is Hyphenated, the podcast about living in the hyphen. What you guys don't know at home is that this is the second take because I was not alive when we did the first intro. We do have a serious topic today, Jenny, which is a topic that me and you have talked about a fuck ton. Sorry to all of you guys listening with your kids at home. But it is a conversation that I feel like not a lot of people fully understand. And it's the term Latinx and the controversy around it and everything that it entails. I don't think there's a more stressful moment for me than when I'm about to post something online and I have to put the word Latino or Latinx. And I'm like, no matter what I write, someone's going to be pissed.
Ah, man, it's something just like you. I struggle with it so much. I don't know how far back I should start here, but identity is complicated, and I don't know if this is the case for you in New York, but in Miami, most Latinos refer to themselves as Hispanic. And there's a lot of Latinos in Miami. It's not just Cubans. It's Guatemalans, Nicaraguans, Ecuadorians, Puerto Ricans, Venezuelans, Colombians. And most of my friends identified as Hispanic. And it wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles when Latino was the thing. I identify as Latino because Hispanic doesn't encompass everyone, especially, like Portuguese, Brazilian.
Right, because Hispanic is Spanish speakers, and then Latinos is anyone in Latin America. It's geographic versus language-based.
That's one of the reasons. But then I came to find that a lot of my Latino friends out here just do not want to be associated with Spain, with the colonizer, essentially. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to just start calling myself Latina, and working at a big company like BuzzFeed, from the get-go, I had to start finding ways. At BuzzFeed, we called it, you have a title for a video. We didn't call it titles. We called it frames. What's the frame? We have to frame it, so that it's clickable. People want to watch it. So it was a lot of experimentation, and a lot of things would go wrong and a lot of things would go right. And about a year into being at BuzzFeed and starting Pero is when I started to hear about the word Latinx, and bigger companies. I don't know if Flama did this, but I know Me Too was doing it, and Pero and we all started using Latinx.
That's sort of what happened to us as well in that, we would be like, oh, how Latinos do this or how Latinas do that. And then suddenly it was like, wait, no, there's a new word in town. We need to incorporate this word. But, and by the way, I worked at Univision. Flama was part of Univision. And Univision was literally the reason the term Latino became so popular after the 80s. Yes, it was created by Chicano activists, but Univision needed a word to show companies that putting money behind marketing to serve this population, the Latino population, not the white or Hispanic population, which, by the way, Mexicans and Puerto Ricans and all these people were considered white on the census until the 1980s. Then Univision was like, all right, this word is in the census. This word is going to help us sell ads. And they started using that word. And so that word became a thing. So Univision was sort of at the epicenter of creating this new word that was needed. But then there was backlash in Univision when Latinx started coming up. And a lot of the people there were like, absolutely, we will not add this. We are not putting this in our shows. We're not putting this in our articles. So it was like this weird contrast to see a company that was at the epicenter of creating a word 40 years ago that was needed and then rejecting a new word that was being created. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Latinx, and I don't know if this happens to you, when I know my video is going to hit a heavily Spanish-speaking audience, I know that if I put Latinx in the title or anywhere, I'm going to get 50,000 comments yelling at me for basically imposing American language and English and standards onto them.
The exact same thing happened to me.
Look at this, Jenny.
And it is
me and you always live through stuff together.
Man, coast to coast, baby. Ugh, so many feelings about this word. I want to preface this by saying that I understand why there is a need for language to evolve to avoid these highly gendered words. And the thing is, the Spanish language is extremely gendered. And there are a lot of people who are trans or gender non-conforming. They're non-binary. They do not identify with being called Latina or Latino.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. And I want there to be a better word to just, so I'm all for this.
Absolutely, me too.
myself,
I'm like, yes, bring it on. We need a word.
Yes.
Let's make it. Let's make this word.
I want people to feel accepted. I want them to feel like they can be included. Because right now they're feeling excluded. And as I consider myself to be an empath, yo sufro mucho when I put myself in other people's shoes. And I'm like, I would hate not feeling included. I would also want a word, right? To like better terms, better language to include someone like me. So I personally did not mind using Latinx. Was it a little weird at first? Claro, because there's an X there. It kind of feels unnatural. But I don't give a shit. Like, for me, language is ever evolving. Pero there was a lot of hate, just like you. La misma cosa me pasó. If I busted my ass on a video and I put Latinx people be like whatever, about 99.9% of the comments weren't about the video. It was about what was on the title, Latinx. People were harassing me. People were calling me names. And it's happened to a lot of my fellow peers. It's happened to you. It's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of my friends out here. So I had to stop using it.
Here's my thing. Because maybe, like, I agree. I would love a more inclusive word. I want there to be a word that, encompasses everyone. For me, it just felt like Latinx came out of nowhere with no explanation. It was just like someone started using it, and then we were all like, oh, fuck, is this the right thing to do? I guess we should do it. But then it also feels like, me being a Spanish speaker, I feel like it doesn't feel natural to a Spanish speaker. Latinx does not sound or look like Spanish. It doesn't feel native. Now, I mean, people can come and tell me whatever they want about the origin. And okay, that's great. If historically, if there's, some influence from indigenous roots and indigenous language, that's great. But in practice, people are not feeling like it feels native to their language. And I feel like I've always used Latins or, and now there's this whole movement of Latine. And I feel like that sounds more appropriate in my Spanish brain. Like this language is, by its structure, completely gendered. And but not only is it gendered, but it is a language of vowels. And it just feels like there's so many ways of creating and matching a word together that feels more native to a Spanish speaker than putting an X at the end. And now it's time for our very first ad. Can you believe it, Jenny?
I've waited for this day, Joanna. De Viaje con los Derbez 2 is a comedy docuseries that follows one of the most beloved families in Latin entertainment.
The cast includes Eugenio Derbez's real-life star-studded family.
Together, the Derbezes learn how to survive in the wild on a crazy family trip.
Oh, God.
The second season of De Viaje con los Derbez is available on Pantaya in the US and Puerto Rico.
On Pantaya, you can enjoy hundreds of movies and shows in Spanish from the comfort of your home or anywhere else by streaming them on your cell phone. Like El Juego de las Llaves with Maite Perroni, that's gearing up for a second season.
So here is the exclusive limited offer.
Exclusive limited offer.
Enjoy Pantaya for just $1 a month for 3 months by visiting pantaya.com/pitaya and subscribing now. Remember, that's Pantaya with a Y. Now here's my question, because is that how you say it, Latine? Because I've been saying Latine.
Bueno, no sé. En Spanish, yo lo leo y digo Latine.
That sounds pretty. For me, the spelling of it, Latine, makes more sense. It rolls off the tongue more easily. I feel like it could be more accepted and adapted by Spanish speakers, even in Latin America. Pero for me, it's like, I haven't really used Latin a lot because I'm still scared. I feel like at least my audience, if it's not Latina or Latino or Hispanic, they are going to reject it.
people are resistant to change by nature. People are resistant, especially when it comes to language. We've talked about this so many times. Like, language is seen, particularly here in the States, or people that are immigrants, language is seen as something that is sacred and something that remains constant and represents identity. And I feel like when people see something encroaching on that, they get scared. They say, wait, you're changing you're changing me. You're changing what I identify as. This is not fair. And literally the word Latinx is to describe a group of people. We're not making a word for snow. We're not making a word for, like, when you hang out too much at a party and then you want to go to sleep. No, this is a word that is meant to encompass, again, 23 different nationalities of different generations, of different ages, of different races. And obviously, you're not going to appease everyone because you're literally telling people to identify as this word.
It just feels impossible because you have two things going on. You've got the LGBTQ plus community and this much needed movement for acceptance. And it's fucking valid as shit.
Totally valid.
And then you've got like all these countries in Latin America who feel, I don't know how to word this.
They feel, I think they feel like they're not choosing with their language. They feel like this is something that's, again, being imported or enforced down their throat, is what I've seen.
Like a colonized, gentrified sort of thing.
It's ironic how so many people are like, yo, this is imperialism. You telling me to say Latinx is imperialistic, which is so crazy to me because the whole concept is like the opposite, I guess. It's inclusion, it's this, that, and the other, but it is more complex than people think. And I think it's interesting because, like, so many of my meetings where I turn on the Zoom meeting and I see a bunch of like American like executives called Connor, and I'm like, all right, I got to say Latinx in this meeting. And then when I log on and I'm like, this guy's in Colombia, este está en Mexico, this guy's from Spain, I'm going to say Latino. It's crazy that we're code switching a word that's just supposed to work for everyone. But it's like, I don't think either it's not doing its job or we're not doing the job it needs. Like, I feel like we're in a catch-22. I always feel like I'm in a catch-22 where I'm like, I want to use a word that is inclusive. I want to be part of like the betterment of society. I want this to happen. I don't like the word Latinx for these reasons. And I'll never forget, Jenny, I was like meeting this woman who has like fought with me online a lot, but I finally met her in person at like a conference. And we were asked this question. We were like, what do you think about the term Latinx? And I said, hey, I love the concept of inclusive language. I think we need to think about it. We need to incorporate it like now. I personally don't find Latinx to sound or look like what my Spanish speaking audience and what my family or what me feel is natural to our language. And she ripped me apart and basically made me feel like I was saying I don't want inclusive language. But we have to be able to say, I don't like the word, but I love the sentiment behind it without it being muddied. And I think that's what's happening. People are afraid to say, Jenny, only 2% of Latinos consider themselves Latinx or use that word.
Yeah, it was like
One in four have heard
study.
it.
Yeah.
1 in 4 have heard it. So, and it's been around for a bit. I feel like
since the early 2000s, no?
But simultaneously, I start thinking, I'm like, what if it was Latine? What if that's what they landed on? Would people be pissed? Maybe. Maybe it's like no matter what the word is, people would be angry because it's still a change to what they know.
Mira, not to make light of shit, but I do comedy, so fuck
dude,
it.
please make light of this. I'm having an anxiety attack. I'm about to take my anti-anxiety medication. It's right next to my computer.
I'm not surprised because even like when I was working at BuzzFeed and Pero Like Me Too and all that shit, and let's say like there would be a video that we'd make and it had to do with food or like a recipe, right? My sister actually had a series at Me Too called La Cocina, and my mom, it was a really cute concept, like a person calls their mom over the phone, their mommy, and they help them with this recipe. And with a couple of the videos, including the one with my mom in it, got people so pissed because, God forbid, one ingredient was different, was slightly off. Again, the raisins in the picadillo debate, or did she use adobo? Did she use this type of sazon? Did she, and the comments were so vile They're like, that's not how a real Cuban makes their, I don't know, arroz con pollo. That's not how a real Guatemalan, I remember one time one of my friends made a video about what to do with leftover tamales after Christmas. Yo, the comments were wild. All these Mexican people were like, how dare you remix tamales? Like, tamales are good by themselves. Don't touch them. Don't fucking touch the tamales. So what's great about, and also terrifying, of working for these bigger digital media companies that focus in on Latino content is because you get Latinos from all over the States, all over the world, chiming in with their opinions. And boy, are they angry. Like, if you change anything at all, like a slight ingredient that's off and it's not how their abuela made it, it's like, nope, wrong, fake, false. You're a bunch of fucking posers. You're not real Latinos. We get angry when it comes to change. We do not like change as a people.
I don't know if it's change. I think you might be right. I think it's
like what is it?
So I feel like
meddling.
We were sort of forced into this reality where, we come from a bunch of different countries with a bunch of different traditions, with a bunch of different words for straw, with all of these things. We come here and now we're told we're not Venezuelan, we're not Cuban, we're this thing called Latino. And that is a word that was made to include us, to make everyone, including Brazil, feel included. But I feel like a lot of what happens when you make a lot of people feel included is that there is an erasure of the sort of idiosyncratic cultural nuances and identity at the end of the day. Like, it is when you include so many people in something, it does erase its like details, right? You can't like, the word Latino encompasses so many words. Now, I think that what's happening with the term Latinx is different. I think that we're already put into the same freaking bucket, so it's just about making it more inclusive. But I think that the people are reacting because it's like, don't change this on me again, where I'm told what I am after I learned another word. It's like, don't tell me again I have to change how I speak when I already came and now I'm not Venezuelan, I'm this, I'm that, and now I'm Latino. Como que, why are you telling me what I should call myself?
La familia Derbez está de vuelta para la segunda temporada.
Esta es la primera vez que estamos todos juntos después de meses de no vernos por la cuarentena.
Esta vez cambiarán los aviones y las ciudades por un camper y el oeste salvaje.
¿Qué tal que sale una serpiente? Me cago.
También aprenderán a sobrevivir todos juntos a todas horas.
Papá, si me muero, ahí le hablas a mi mamá, ¿eh?
No, ni así le voy a hablar.
¡Ay, cabrón!
Descarga pantalla desde el App Store y Google Play y recibe 7 días gratis al descargar. No te olvides, es pantalla con Y.
I was about to speak at a panel, and I was the only Latina on the panel, by the way. And the como moderator was like, Joanna Hausman, female Latinx. And I was like, and I interrupted him before, this was like a run through. And I was like, hey, can you just say Latina or Venezuelan? Like, female Latinx just say Latina. There's a word for that. And he gave me this look like, don't say that. Like, that's not okay. And I'm like, what is not okay? I'm telling you, I identify as Latina. That's fine. There's nothing wrong. I'm not saying a bad word here. I'm saying, don't say female Latinx when there's a word que es Latina. Just use, for me, I want to be called Latina. I just realized,
yeah, he said female Latinx. That is kind of odd.
And then he was just like, I don't feel comfortable. And I was like, oh, fuck you. You don't feel comfortable calling me what I want to be called? Latina? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're imposing your... Like, what are you doing? And that made me really frustrated. And then I realized, oh my God, is this how LGBTQ plus people feel? And it is.
Yeah.
When they're called Latino
exactly
or Latina, and they're not.
Yes. Wow. That's a really nice way to tie it together. Coño, we need to think about other people. We need to be empathetic. We need to embrace. We need to learn and educate ourselves about the LGBTQ plus community. I myself am a queer woman. I'm bisexual. And so I feel like a hypocrite being like, fuck you, non-binary people. Like, I'm gonna use patriarchal terms and la 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 la. También, let's be real, Latino culture is heavily homophobic still. And that's a whole other sack of potatoes.
Yeah, but I feel like so much of the frustration isn't even linked to homophobia. Maybe it is like inherently and subconsciously. But I think a lot of it is also, hey, don't come in and tell me what to call myself. Don't come in and tell me what to call myself. And that is what the whole movement is about, is don't tell me to say Latino when that's not, I don't identify as female or male. Like, or I don't identify as this, or I want something. But then I also think it's like, well, then I want to be called Latina. Don't tell me what I should be called either. I think we should all choose what to make one word encompass all of us. We've already discussed this doesn't work. So can we have several words? Can we use all of them? Can we incorporate all of them? And when it's appropriate, we use each one? Why do we have to shift to one word? Can we stop doing this? Jesus Christ, I'm going to have an aneurysm.
Okay, Joanna, I'm very concerned. She's turning red, folks. She's turning red.
I am red. You guys can't see this. I'm turning red. Can we just use all the words is what I'm saying. Why can we just incorporate everything? Just use them. And like, it's like, it's just, Jenny, I need a glass of water.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to say wine. I am literally sweating right now because I am worried about the emails we'll get.
Oh my God, me too. That's the thing. I don't want to be called anti-anything. I'm the opposite, but I don't want to be told. We're back to the beginning.
Okay, mira. The thing is, to me, this just seems like a really giant, annoying, frustrating brainstorm session when you're like getting together with a group of people to come up with like the title of a company, right? That is what it feels like. That's what it feels like when I was in the room when we all try to come up with the name Pero, like, you know, and you're gonna bump heads and not everyone's gonna agree and you're gonna be in that room for hours until everyone, and it's fucking, that in and of itself is hard with just a room of 10 people. Imagine millions of people trying to agree to the one word that's going to encompass everyone. Because, I mean, again, we should mention that the Latinx term really started to gain popularity after the 2016 mass shooting at Pulse, which was the nightclub in Orlando. And so that's when like media and celebrities and corporations, universities started to embrace the term. So then for me, what I want more than anything for people listening is to just try to empathize and understand why there is this movement, why we are in this giant brainstorm session to come up with a gender neutral term for Latinos.
I think it's important to support the why, but then workshop the word. Be able to workshop the word and figure it out together and have that not mean that the why doesn't matter. The why is incredibly important. Yep. But I think that we're still figuring out what that word is and how language will change and shift to incorporate everyone. Well, maybe we figure out another way of saying, maybe it is an X at the end and then it's just silent and we say Latine. I don't know, man. I'm open to figuring it out. I also want us to be on the journey of figuring it out and talking and conversing with each other and not pointing at each other saying no, and like that's wrong or you're wrong. It's like, all right, dude, we don't know what we're doing. We're literally figuring this out. So can we just like chill, go back to the boardroom, get a little bit of coffee, wipe down the whiteboard and start over? Like, let's relax.
What I don't like is how people who do incorporate, who are experimenting with Latinx, Latine, etc., are being harassed when all we're trying to do is include more people. That's all we're trying to do. We're trying to make others included.
I'm so few people in my life can I have this conversation with in such depth and like real clear understanding of the different people that it impacts and it affects. So thank you for coming on this journey with me.
Thank you, Joanna. I'm glad we're in this together.
Then we both like high five as we jump, it freeze frames, and then a song plays as we slowly back away.